Not letting my daughter go to a Halloween party? My husband, 34M, and I, 34F, have 6 kids. Our 2 oldest are our 15-year-old daughter, Autumn, and our 13-year-old son, Thatcher. Thatcher and Autumn are both at the age where they don't go trick-or-treating for Halloween anymore. Both of them have different parties they want to go to. Thatcher and his girlfriend want to go as Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. My son plays baseball and watches all sports, including the NFL. His girlfriend is into Taylor Swift. Autumn and her boyfriend want to go as Marie and Pierre Curie. The issue has been Autumn and her boyfriend saying mean things to Thatcher and his girlfriend about their costume. The biggest issue is that they said that his girlfriend shouldn't be Taylor Swift because his girlfriend is black. We are white and live in a very white area. She's one of the few black kids in the district. Thatcher got into a massive argument with Autumn over this. We weren't home when this happened, but when Thatcher told us what happened, we spoke to both of them. Thatcher was justifiably really angry. He said that it didn't matter because anyone can be Taylor Swift for Halloween. Thatcher tries to learn about his girlfriend's struggles and culture. We talked to Autumn about this and she at first dismissed it. We pushed her, she wouldn't apologize until we had to threaten to take away her electronics. A few days later, she made a comment about how dumb the costume was and how they're only going as it because they're famous and how my son is just following trends. Autumn was talked to again and she apologized. The last straw was yesterday. I had gotten a call from Autumn's science teacher that her and her boyfriend were complaining about Thatcher's costume and had made other kids uncomfortable. I apologized and she said that Autumn and her boyfriend had said racist things before and I asked why she didn't tell me. She told me she emailed me. After talking for a bit, we realized the email in the school system was wrong and I gave her my correct email and she said she'd help me get it changed in the system. I talked to Autumn and she said that her and her boyfriend just tell the truth in class. She also admitted she wasn't sorry for what she said to Thatcher. I told her she wasn't allowed to go to the Halloween party and she told me I was overreacting. I asked some of my friends for advice and they said I was being too hard on her. My son, however, is really upset and says that knowing she's getting grounded for her behavior makes him more comfortable bringing his girlfriend over. He says he wouldn't want to live with us if we didn't punish her racism. Comment 1. NTA: if Autumn is making racist comments in school and the teacher has noticed and reported it to you, you have to take a stand and make her realize this is unacceptable behavior. It seems harsh, but grounding her from the party may be what it takes to make her realize the seriousness of her unacceptable behavior. Comment 2. NTA: your daughter is displaying concerning behavior, and evidently has a history of doing so. You need to work on getting through to her so she doesn't carry that behavior into her adult life. I'd also recommend some therapy, someone to really dig in to find out why your kid thinks it's okay to say these things, and help them understand how hurtful and wrong it can be. She may not be willing to open up to you, so a third party could be helpful. As a parent, you have a duty to raise a respectful, thoughtful, kind child. That means you need to take steps to understand why she is behaving as she is and change her mindset. If keeping her from going to her own Halloween event will accomplish that, then go for it. Comment 3. NTA: it's our job to raise our kids to not be racist shits. I would also be very concerned that a 15-year-old and hopefully similar-aged boyfriend think it's acceptable to act like this. There's something deeper here, and honestly it sounds like neither of them are good for the other if they're feeding off of each other's racism. Kicking out my girlfriend and her son after she invited her ex into our home? Me, 35M, and my GF, Sarah, 35F, have been together for 4 years. She has a son, Nathan, 9M, with her ex Mark, 36M. Sarah has full custody of Nathan, with her ex having scheduled visitations one weekend of every month. Sarah and Nathan moved in with me a little over a year and a half ago, and in my perspective, it was a little rocky at first. I've always been pretty protective of my space, so making room for 2 other people was difficult for me. When Sarah moved in with me, we agreed that the visitations for Mark would be held in our apartment as long as I'm home. The main reason I wanted this is because I don't know Mark that well, and I don't want him wandering around our apartment without me there. When we proposed this idea to Mark, he was fine with it. Now moving on to the real issue. 3 weeks ago marked 4 months since Mark's last visit, so I had asked Sarah when he was planning on visiting Nathan. My GF replied by shrugging her shoulders and telling me she'd ask. She never followed up with it. So a few days ago, I asked when Mark's next visit was and Sarah said she'd tell me when she knew. Nathan was in the living room but had apparently overheard us and shouted something along the lines of "Dad was here last weekend, remember?" Sarah's face immediately dropped, and when I asked what Nathan meant, she wouldn't give me a direct answer. Eventually she ended up telling me that for the past 2 visits, Mark had been to our apartment when I was working. When I accused her of going back on our agreement, she kept telling me this was her home too and she could invite whoever she wanted, and that it was fine because she was here and watching. I told her that was besides the point and she violated my trust. It blew up into a huge argument which ended in me telling her to get out of my apartment. She packed up and left with Nathan. Last I heard she was staying with her parents. I've gotten several messages from both Sarah and her parents calling me an asshole for kicking Sarah and Nathan out of their home for something so small. She's even been blasting me on Instagram and Facebook about how horrible I am to do this to her. It's got me thinking I might be the R, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Comment 1. NTA. Not only did she broke the only rule you had, for whatever reason, but she lied about it multiple times and seems never had intention to tell you until the kid revealed the truth. If she had an issue with a single boundary you've set, she should have talked to you and renegotiate it, but she didn't bother. And I'm sorry, but letting someone move in with you doesn't automatically makes you and them 100% equal residents in a house you own, especially when it comes to conditions that were agreed on before the move. Comment 2. NTA. She lied to you multiple times, and when she got caught her response was to try to emotionally manipulate you into accepting this blatant violation of your boundaries. Even if this was entirely above board, though she wouldn't have had to lie if it was, and she didn't do anything with her ex, there's clearly no respect for you here. Comment 3. ESH. She shouldn't have lied and that's weird. But, dude. You kicked them out like they were guests. You just said they've been living there for 1.5 years. You kicked a child out of his home instantly on a whim, for something he had nothing to do with. WTF. I hope at least you consider this a breakup and are done with them both in your life, because if you have any notion of treating this as a standard couples dispute that needs resolving after that. Kicking my son and his GF out? I 55F have 2 children, George 31M and Gabrielle 29F. Gabrielle recently got engaged and I am helping her plan the wedding in my spare time, which the entire family is very excited for. Except for George. George recently divorced his wife of 7 years, Susanna 28F, after he said the spark had gone out. They have a set of twins together, Amy and Alice 6F. And are trying to set up a healthy co-parenting relationship. Susanna is a great mother to my grandkids and I was disappointed in George for giving up so fast on their relationship without even trying couples counseling. But it wasn't my business or place to say anything. The drama started when George brought his new girlfriend to dinner at my house. He met his girlfriend Bethany 25F through a work colleague and they have been dating for 4 months. At dinner Gabrielle and I were discussing flower arrangements and Bethany felt the need to ask George if he'd ever marry again. George coughed before replying that he'd have to think about it, which Bethany seemed to deflate at. Well, this caused Alice to cry about how she wants mommy and daddy to love each other again. George and Bethany just sat there while my granddaughter screamed. After I comforted Alice, I pulled George aside and asked if he was sure about Bethany, which he told me was none of my business. I told him it was my business who he invited into my home and my grandchildren's lives, since I've been caring for them in my spare time while he works. He and Susanna have 50-50 custody. George got angry and said it was Gabrielle's fault for mentioning weddings in the first place. I told him to stop acting like a child and to be happy for his sister. Then Bethany felt the need to insert herself and tell me that she and George were together no matter how much I liked his ex-wife. After that I was done with the conversation and asked them both to leave. George and Bethany stormed off, flipped me the bird and left my grandchildren at my house at 7 p.m. I had to call Susanna to collect the children since they had school in the morning and I was attending a cake tasting with Gabrielle the next day. I feel like I shouldn't have to tell my 31-year-old son to be happy for his sister or argue with a random woman whom I have never met before, in my own home. So, comment 1. NTA, but your son sure is. I'm glad Bethany at least got to see his intentions, but sad neither of them comforted your granddaughter. She sounds really classy./s. Perhaps George needs to pay for daycare for a while. It seems he needs to learn to grow up. Perhaps if his income takes a hit his 25-year GF won't see him as such a catch. Be careful or before you know it she'll be pregnant and you'll have them moving in so he can save up aka you take care of baby. Comment 2. Bethany should not have started that as a dinner guest in your home. That was tactless and impolite of her to put George on the spot in front of everyone else. George is wrong to blame his sister for Bethany's behaviors too. And more than anything, he's wrong to not be more supportive and loving toward his children who have been through a lot. NTA. I have told my son to never bring that woman back to my home, never show me his ass again, and most of all act like his children are his priority. I'm disappointed because your behavior is unmanly. Chew on that, son. Comment 3. You have a bigger issue at hand because Alice will hate every new partner because in her head she believes they kept mommy and daddy from loving each other. Your main focus should be to explain to Alice that grown-ups falls out of love and it has nothing to do with the love they have for her. It won't be a healthy co-parenting when Alice already hates every woman who tries to replace her mom. She needs more attention and maybe counseling. She had a strong reaction. Coming to the hospital to see my ex after her son called me. 7 years ago I started dating a woman, let's call her Maya. She has a son, Mark. He was 4 when I started dating Maya. Mark's father, Maya's husband, unfortunately passed away when he was still a baby so he has no memory of him. Me and Maya got along quite well and our relationship proceeded steadily and without too many problems. In time, I built a good relationship with Mark too and by the time he was 7, we were a good trio. Unfortunately my relationship with Maya ended 2 years ago. It was nobody's fault. There was no cheating or abuse involved. We simply had some problems and we came to the conclusion it was better to break up. Last week I got a call in the middle of the night, it was Mark calling. When I was still dating Maya, I had given him my phone number and told him to call if he was ever in trouble and needed help. He had never called since me and Maya broke up, but that night he was panicking. He called and he told me that he and Maya had a car accident. He was okay but Maya was injured and they had been taken to the hospital. I pondered on what to do but decided to go to the hospital. Maya has no living relatives and Mark told me he was alone so I went there mostly to take care of Mark. When I arrived, Maya was still unconscious so I stayed with Mark for several hours, until she regained consciousness. When she saw me, she asked why I was there and I told her about Mark calling me. She said I should not have come and forced me to leave. At the time, I apologized and left because I thought I had overstepped her boundaries but now, thinking back, I don't think I did anything wrong. Mark was panicking and he called the person he wanted by his side in that moment. Was it wrong for me to come? Comment 1. Nah, a young boy is afraid for his mother and all alone while she is injured. This wasn't an attempt to revisit a relationship, it's about taking care of a kid who is scared when their primary adult is in an emergency situation. It might have been a knee-jerk reaction at being surprised by your presence, but she might realize after some thought that it was right for you to show up when Mark called you in a panic. How cold would it have been to say no anyway? Comment 2. NTA. Here's the thing. What if she hadn't woken up relatively quickly? The hospital would have had a social worker put him in an emergency foster situation, so he would have been, relatively, safe, but he likely would also have been unable to visit his mother or attend his regular school. Yes, his mom was upset, and maybe reasonably so considering her situation and the confusion. But somebody needs to let that kid know he didn't do anything wrong. God forbid something should happen in the future and he has no one he can call. Comment 3. Nah. If I was in a car accident that left me unconscious for hours, I probably wouldn't want to wake up to see my ex. However, you weren't wrong to go to the hospital when Mark called. Apologizing and leaving was the right move. Don't get hung up on the idea that you were in the right, so was she. Giving a fake name at Starbucks. Alright, so I, 22M, think this whole thing is ridiculous, but my GF, 21F, is really angry at me, so here we go. I don't like giving my real name at places like Starbucks and similar stores where they shout out your name when the order's ready. I can't tell you why. I have a normal, reasonably common name I like fine enough, but for some reason it majorly creeps me out when a barista shouts my name through a room full of strangers. I guess it's just some, at least to me, harmless quirk I have. So whenever I am at a store where they want your name, I say it's Tom. That's literally the name I use, nothing inappropriate or outlandish, just plain Tom. I know I am meant when they call it, as I always use the same one so there is no confusion or anything. They yell Tom, I get my drinks/food, and it's never been a problem till now. A couple days ago I was at Starbucks with my new GF and ordered our drinks. While she sat down, I gave them my fake name as always, and when our order was ready and they shouted Tom, I went and got it. My GF was a bit confused and asked me if I went and got someone else's order, which is fair enough, so I explained the thing to her and thought that's that, but she got really angry. She says it's really disrespectful to lie like that and that I am making everybody in the store out to be creeps who will do something bad if they know my name, which is not at all what's happening. I just don't like when they yell my real name, so I found a harmless way to get around that. But she can't see it like that. She thinks I am a pathological liar who is way too suspicious of everyone, and I need to stop. I really can't see the problem she has. It's really not that deep. I don't think I am hurting anyone. Or am I? So yeah, I am really confused by her reaction and asking myself if I am the asshole after all for some reason I can't comprehend. Comment 1. I guess NTA? I don't think it's disrespectful. None of the Starbucks employees will know or care if you use a fake name, but it's definitely weird that you think it matters in any way if a handful of random strangers hear a first name with no confirmation that it's actually your name. Comment 2. I do the same thing. I have a common name that can sound like many other names, so the confusion just adds up, so I give a name I can easily recognize. For your GF to get so worked up over it is a bit much. Good thing is that she is a new GF and you didn't invest too much time in the relationship. If she nitpicks about everything so much, perhaps you two aren't a good fit. NTA. Comment 3. NTA. I used to work at one of those places that asked for names. A few of the older regulars whose names I did know absolutely did not want their real names punched into the system because they were suspicious of the system, and I actually enjoyed coming up with goofy fake names for them. They loved it. I wasn't upset. Most of those people working there don't know you. They don't care. They are there to do a job. And honestly, they probably think having to ask for names is silly and just another dumb rule corporate is pushing on them.